Hello, well, this is Catherine Trotter, and I am back for another edition of The Shift. As you know, we have just shifted into the month of March. This is the month where we're going to execute on our goals, execute on our dreams. And yes, you know, next month it all goes down. It's the Unlock 2026 Business Conference. But we want to take a pause right now. We want to interview a business leader in the community that's in the DMV region, Mr. Pasquale. He is one of the partners with PSJ Management Consulting Firm. Again, right here in the heart of the DMV. We're so excited to have him with us on today to share about who he is, what lit a fire under him to become an entrepreneur, what his business services offers in the community. So welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Catherine. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So before we get into the heart of your company, first tell everyone, why is entrepreneurship a part of your ecosystem? Why were you drawn to become an entrepreneur?
Sure. So I think it's something that it started with me when I was a kid. Obviously, you realize those things as you go along. You have to put dots together. But since I was a kid, growing up in Italy, in a small town, I wanted more. I wanted to get involved into different things and bigger things, and started to go in a larger city, and then a bigger city, and then a different country. And so eventually, I was able to bring this to back together to my entrepreneurship sort of willingness to go and try different things and create businesses. So I think that's where I realize I sort of was born entrepreneurship, but I also believe that you can become one later in life or at any time, if that matter.
So I think that's significant though. But you said you first got the hunger to become an entrepreneur when you were young. You were in Italy, and you just knew that was going to be your pathway. You may not have had all the direction or how you were going to make it happen, but you knew that was going to be what you were going to do.
Yes, I knew I wanted more. Again, being in a small community, in a small city, you sort of see folks doing pretty much this similar path or similar jobs. And I knew this wasn't for me. I knew I wanted to get more. I didn't know how or what I needed to do, but I knew I wanted to go more. And then eventually I stick to that and find my way over time.
So as we all know, as an entrepreneur, there's always that first business that you start with. What was your first step into the entrepreneur? What was your first business?
Gosh, so I think that the very first business was to buy and resell stuff, right? And so again, it's probably one of the easiest thing to come across. You start to put two and two together and say, okay, I want to do something. How do I make money? And so I think the easiest thing at the time was, well, maybe I know someone, I can get a deal on this item and then try to resell it. And not to give you too much of a spoiler, but funny enough, I have a 14-year-old son, and early this year, he came back, or early 2025, he came back to me and said, Dad, I want to start a business and I'm going to resell clothing. And so he actually didn't know that I started by selling and reselling stuff. So there was a sort of a very interesting moment for me, and kind of like a full circle, even though you didn't know.
No, but I think there's something powerful in what you're saying, because your son obviously see you as an entrepreneur, right? He's watching you. And sometimes you never know what the youth are soaking up, you know what I mean? And so even though he may not have known that's how you got started, it's interesting that that's where he wants to start, right? And then from that initial business, what do you think you learned from your initial business? And how old were you when you started your first business?
Sure. I probably was, I would say 17 years old, 17, maybe even 18 years old. And so what I realized very quickly was that there is obviously the inspiring part of business. Like, I want to make money. I want to do this. And I want to, connect that person or that item to that person, whatever the case may be. And then you realize everything that is behind making that happen, right? That it's not as sexy as making connection or selling. And it's like, okay, how do I do accounting? How do I get set up? How do I pay taxes? How do I figure out license or bureaucracy? How do I build my presence? So all of that behind the scene things that, you're not necessarily excited about initially. And then again, eventually over time, you get to realize how important that portion of the business is, and why, frankly, so many business owners or business companies fails, and why is it so hard to make it, right? Because that's the other reality of the situation.
No, that I think it's powerful. So you learned in real time. And initially it was just that desire, you wanted to be more, do more. You started first with your first business around age 17, 18. Now, fast forward, your son, 14, is now launching it into the entrepreneur community. But PSJ Management Consulting, let everybody know, because this is your current business. You are partnered with the company. What is the company about?
Yes, absolutely. So we are an advisory consulting firm, and what I mean by that, mostly we'll work in supporting the federal government. We have three main verticals, which is financial services, IT, and HR. There is a reason behind those three verticals. Each of our partners have been in the advisory federal consulting business for over 20 years. So each of us sort of holds a specific swim lane. And then obviously there are many different things that we do across those three verticals. But what made us start this company was, like I said, for many years, we have supported this line of work through other companies, through, the corporate America ladder. And even though I have always been an entrepreneur, and I'll explain to you what I mean by that, Catherine, because I also hold other businesses and different businesses throughout. Working on the corporate side gave me the ultimate knowledge and understanding of what it means working for a global large scale firm, and what are the priorities, what are their compliant lanes, and how do they approach business. But I was fortunate enough and purposefully also to work in smaller organization where my reach was much higher, and I was able to get involved with different part of the business. And so I consider myself very lucky, because through my corporate years, I had an opportunity to really focus on my line of work and grow this specific line of work globally, under having many employees under me. And then also being able to work in a smaller company where my footprint was larger with less employees, but it gave me an opportunity to understand so many different areas of a company, rather than just professionally manage one vertical at a larger scale or at a global scale. So in terms of the entrepreneurial spirit, as I was telling you, even though I had a corporate job, I was itching to do something else. And so maybe we'll get to as we get into conversation, but yeah, at the end of the day, we are an advisory services company, and we support federal government, but we also support commercial and private sector organizations as well.
Awesome. And so you're in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, right?
Yes. So our company is headquartered in Virginia, but we are in Northern Virginia area. So most of our clients are in the DC metro area. So mostly we have clients in this region. We do occasionally have international clients as well, because we have a sort of like separate arm of our company that I can share with you more information if you like, where we focus on international clients. But for our advisory business, yes, DC Metro is sort of like our home.
Okay, awesome. When you think about your business journey from when you started 17, 18 years old to where you are today, what has been the most defining shift in your life and that you've seen in your business that you can share, that we can glean some knowledge from as we continue to grow as business owners?
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope this doesn't sound cliche, because trust me, it's not. But
Mhm.
the first shift for me, it was actually from a mindset perspective.
Mm.
So the moment that you are committed and you decide, okay, I want to have my own business, I want to start this project, I want to start this company. The moment you internally 100% you feel the commitment, that's where, it is the first shift. That's where something changes inside of you. And it's different than thinking about having your own business. It's different about thinking of, creating something. I am talking the very, burning butterfly in your stomach feeling when you say you're committed, and your mind is telling you to yourself, like, yes, this is it, right? So I think that's the first shift. And then obviously there are other shifts, but they're a little bit more operationally,
Mhm.
so I would say that the absolute first shift that happens with your mindset and your willingness to change and commit to a new business.
Yeah, the two things that's sticking with me is the mindset that you have to have. And then the second thing that you said was the commitment, because you can have the mindset but not the commitment. We can have desire all day long, but are we going to commit to it? And I think that's a huge piece of the puzzle when you're talking about you're launching out, you're stepping out to start a business, is having the mindset of what you want to do, right? And then the commitment comes along with the action steps, which I think connects to the next question that I have for you is what do you think when you think about people building a business? What do most people underestimate about building a business in their first couple of years to visioning long term, 10 years, 20 years out? What is your thoughts around that?
So I think initially, it's probably a multitude of things, but initially, to continue to what we just stated, the commitment, right? So the level of commitment that you need to have when you start a new business, it's a serious thing, right? Because it's something that will keep you at times away from your family. It will keep you away from weekends. It will keep you away from other things in life that you probably value a lot. But there is, again, a level of commitment that you cannot ignore or let go when you start a new business. And then I think things progress into, you can never underestimate the level of innovation that you have to continuously go through. You have to be able to adapt to business climate, right? There are changes. Doesn't matter what industry, what vertical you're going to work with, there's going to be changes. There's going to be disruption. And so you have to be nimble, agile. You have to be able to really digest and implement change very quickly. And so those things at times can be underestimated, particularly if you are a couple of years in with a business that's going fairly well, and then you sort of like sit back a little bit too early and too soon. That's where things can get challenging.
And so that's what I'm hearing from you also. You have to be flexible to the growth opportunities, right? And you have to be open to those growth opportunities, but also understanding where your business is at so you don't miss those growth opportunities, right? So that's why it's key. Like business owners will do their SWOT analysis, looking at what their strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats to make sure you're on the pulse of those shifts and changes that will happen in your business, but also in the industry that you're in, right? How have you seen yourself outgrow certain seasons in your business as you've been evolving since a teenager, right?
Mhm.
This can help someone else that's evolving, that's growing, that's building. They might be looking at their business plan right now and saying, okay, I feel I'm outgrowing a season in my business, but how do I pivot? How would you recommend, what are some pivot strategies for business owners that might be outgrowing a particular season?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't know if there's a one size fits all kind of answer, but
Mhm.
I'll say this for me. Again, piggyback on, you have to be flexible. You have to understand what's out there. What I always say it is be open to understanding opportunities, different ways, right? That potentially fit or don't fit your businesses. But then you have to also be able at the same time to ignore the noise, right? So in other words, create a funnel in your head, and you can keep it full, right? And you can put things in there that are outside of your core type of work, as long as you have a good filter, right? And then you're able to retain some of the things that ultimately are in line with what you want to do. I think that's a little bit of a secret sauce. Now, I do recognize it's a little bit easier said than done, right? Because it takes a lot of times, it takes a lot of mistakes, as you know, as every entrepreneur, mistakes are the salt, right, of ingredient of success. In terms of how to pivot, I think start with innovation. So start with thinking outside of the box. Start with picking the brain of someone else that it's been there, right? Or someone that has, for example, I always like to have a reference of someone that is at the next stage growth that I am currently in it, and pick the brain and understand. And what was, the pivot? Like, how did you go from, just to give you an example, from 50 employees to 100 employees? Or how did you go from 200 to 500? And so, and even if you don't have the specific answer, it still gives you some sort of a mental guardrail to start to identify, okay, you know what, maybe this is the aspect that I need to pivot, or maybe this is the trend, or perhaps this is the, potential services that I can add to my businesses. So I think it's a combination of things, but you can't be afraid to go out there and search for it in any way that you can possibly can.
Yeah. So going beyond the box and reaching out to someone that might be seasoned in a particular area where you're striving to grow through or go to, should I say? Because, we often have to pivot in business. My mind thinks about 2020. Everybody had to pivot in business when the pandemic hit, right? You was either going to pivot or your business was just going to falter, right? How do you see technology? Because I know that's a definitely a right now conversation. How have you seen technology shift your industry that you're in, and how do you see it helping in what you do for your business to continue to grow?
Yeah, absolutely. Technology is changing, right, dramatically every day, and even to the pivot conversation, Catherine. Let me say this: 2025, it's been an absolute pivotal situation for every government contractor out there,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Doge coming in, with the far-changing rules, with so many things. And so I feel like there's always going to be examples of things that change. One of that, it's related to technology. It's been AI, right? And so AI, I've heard someone the other day say, oh, a tech revolution is coming, AI is coming. And I say to myself, AI is here. It's not coming. It came, and it's moving so fast
Yeah.
that if you don't learn how to incorporate that into your business, into your thinking, into your way of communicate with others, you're going to be late to the party. And I want to give a little bit maybe more on this, because this is something that I hear a lot out there in social media and so many outlets. So folks always talk about AI, and you got to start using it, and you got to do this and do that, but no one really goes into details. So how do you use AI today in your business, and why is this so important? And so we can go, or we can start from the typical, LLMs like the ChatGPT or the language models. They are very easy consumption, right? They can do a lot of things. They can help you. But I always challenge everyone, from an AI perspective. And again, I'm not AI guru, so I don't want to give you the wrong impression here. But this is something that I'm trying to go through in my day-to-day with my current business. And I said, okay, besides those tasks, right, that the LLMs, the language models can help us with every day, what else is out there, right? Forget the daily task. How do we completely disrupt our industry by leveraging technology? And so I am trying to understand, okay, what exactly can be adapted to the type of business, and how this will change the life of our customers. And especially within the government, the AI adoption, it's a little bit behind. But one of the biggest challenges is they also don't understand how to integrate AI into their day-to-day. And so I think being able to put dots together and understand and be able to translate how's this AI product or technology that our firm can help you implement for you to do X, Y, and Z and create efficiency very specifically and very proactively in your day-to-day, it's going to be a game changer in GovCon, right? And I'm using this example, and I'm sure there are other nuances or different examples in different industry. But I think we have to go and look behind the task-oriented support and really understand and be able to explain adoption, right? And to be able to do that, you have to become more familiar with your client. You have to understand their mission. You have to understand their strategic priorities. How do we make you better? Because at the end of the day, you are not able to really produce solutions if you don't really understand what their pain points are from your clients, right? And so for me, this tech season is really, yes, I need to learn how to be better and understand what the products, how the AI works, but I am also doubling down on, let me understand what our customer needs and what are their priorities, and then I'll figure out a way to apply technology to it.
No, but you said a lot of things that make sense. You talked about adoption, because when you talk about AI and tech, that's broad. I mean, it's so many things that fall under that umbrella. So when you said adoption and then understanding your client's pain point, because I think sometimes, when even with myself, I'm looking at how do I leverage it as a tool, right? That's what it is. It's a tool. So how do you leverage it? In other words, when you talked about adoption, how do you weave it into your business practice? To make sure that your systems is upgraded. Really, it's a tool to upgrade your business system. That's how I look at it. And then you touched on also 2025 in terms of what took place within the government community. So how did y'all weather that storm? Like, what are some strategies you used?
Yes, and again, this is something that we did because of our particular timing for us, but it was a big challenge, right? And so I'm going to give you an answer, but I think there was a little bit of value in sort of like giving you a little bit of thought process behind as well for everyone to listening, right? That maybe feel stuck right now, right? Because we're still in it, we're not out of it yet. Right. And so for us was going back to control to what you can control, right? And so we figured out, okay, so we're in this situation, everybody's frozen, we're not a large company, we can't just sit back and let this play out. We don't have opportunities to go and lobby like large business do. And so we sort of went back to the basics and said, okay, how can we be prepared, right? And use this time to create some deeper foundation and so that once things sort of like get better, we're going to be ready to execute. So we went back and said, okay, why don't we focus back on the number of certifications we have so we can increase and differentiate the number of certifications that we have. We can go ahead and look for partnerships, right? So this is actually, it's going to give us some time to really evaluate potential partnerships, because in your day-to-day, you're always on the go, right? It's always hard to find time. This gave us an opportunity to say, okay, let's sit back and explore partnerships. Or let's go and take a look at our offerings, right? How can we create a broader offering? We know AI or technology tools are coming. Maybe this could give us the opportunity to really refine some of our offerings. And so that's what we did. So we spent that time to sort of like work on ourselves and brought our offerings, upgrade our technologies, create partnerships. And since the beginning of 2026, we started to see opportunities coming from those pivots that we did, right? And so we took the time to create important partnership for us. And when I say we took the time, Catherine, I'm also referring actually from a paperwork, right, bureaucracy perspective, because
Mhm.
and I'm guilty. We're guilty of doing this ourselves, but you have no idea of how many companies or even sole proprietor LLCs, sometimes they want a partnership, they don't have the time, they're the one-man show. And so what they do is they lack the amount of documentation, agreements, of right opportunity to really set themselves up for success.
Mhm.
And then once a conflict comes up, they realize, well, I should have used an attorney, or I should have done this, I should have negotiated that. And so that's an important aspect as well. And we we went back and sort of like took our time to develop that partnership piece.
No, that's powerful. There's a saying that I've heard. Sometimes you have to slow down to speed up.
Yep.
And it sounds like when you talked about, I wrote it down, control what you can control. I think that's powerful. And then you went back to identify who your partnerships were. You did a review of your service offerings. And I think, this is transferable information, even if you're not in the government space, right?
Mhm.
We know that that's your core space. But for business owners watching this, or listening to it, this is significant. Control what you can control, and then slowing down to speed up. You did an internal review, because you said the paperwork side of things. So you did an internal review of where you needed to elevate, upgrade, what have you. Again, sticking with the theme of slow down to speed up. And sometimes when a business don't do that, whether you're in the government space or private sector, your business will run out of fume. When you run out of fume, that means there's no business exchange taking place. And we know if there's no business exchange, that business is going to fade away. And I think what you're saying is so, again, I was taking notes while you were sharing that. Control what you can control really hit me, because I think a lot of times when we're in business, we look at all these external things and there's so many things that's going on, but you got to narrow your focus as a business owner and say, what can I control? What are my deliverables? What do I need to do to shift or elevate my deliverables? And who do I need to partner with? Right? Talk about the significance around partnerships.
Yeah, absolutely. Partnerships are very important. And again, you have to be able to, ignore the noise a little bit, right? And really be focused. So partnerships are very, very important. They're powerful. They're a great tool for everyone to use, but they could also be detrimental, right? They can be negative. So I don't want to just highlight the positive side of partnership, which, let me
Mm-hmm.
be clear, they outweighs, in my mind, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
good partnerships always outweighs, the negative potential, aspect that can come up.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be aware that they're there, right? And
Yeah.
so going back to documentation, right, the best thing you can do, and respecting one another in partnership, is to be upfront and putting black and white
Mm-hmm.
ink right from the beginning,
Yeah.
because this will be essential. And successful partnership in good faith, everyone will be accommodating
Yeah.
that aspect and the opportunity. So if someone doesn't want to put things in writing at the very beginning, be skeptical. Aside from that, so I really believe partnership can provide you the opportunity to grow. They can provide you the opportunity to diversify. They
Mm-hmm.
can provide you the opportunity to innovate together. And
Mm-hmm.
so to me, it's a great thing. At times the most difficult aspect related to forming partnership is actually understanding what do you need. Again, understand your mission, understand where do you want to go, what is your vision, and then from there trying to figure it out. What partnership, who can help you, why is this a win-win? And you have to think that from both sides, right? You have to create a win-win from both sides, because this will give you the easiest rate of success to execute a partnership, right? You don't want to be, oh, I can use you just to do X. And so an example that I can share, again, this is related to my industry, but I think you can apply it in different industries as well. So within the government, there is this program, there's an SBA program that's called Mentor Protege. And so what it does, it gives the opportunity to a large business to be the mentor, and then a small upcoming business to be the protege, and sort of like work under their wing, right? And help, and they can help you develop, not just from a sales perspective and revenue, but also from an operational maturity level.
Mm-hmm.
And so those things are very hard, right, to execute, because there's a bunch of small companies that are dying to be, paired with these large companies. But at the end of the day, if you as a small company, you don't create a good value proposition, and you don't come up and you do your research and your work to be able to show what you bring into the table, even if you end up executing a partnership, it's going to die. It's not going to amount to much, because a large company, even though they have the means, the ability, and the resources, they're not just going to use them for you because you're a small business. And so a lot of times I see this misconception as well. So that it doesn't matter the size, create a value proposition, showcase what you can bring to the table, and work on it, right? To make sure you have it, it's crystal clear, and it's crisp, and it comes out right away. Here's how I can help. Here's what I can bring to the table. And so to me, that's a key ingredient for partnerships.
No, that's powerful. And when you were talking about documentation, that's the MOU agreement. Sometimes people don't have that in place. And that's essentially what you're talking about. If you're entering into this partnership, you want to put it in black and white. What are the expectations? What is the mutual exchange? I heard you say also, it's not just about, this is what I really got from it. It's not just about what one person is getting, it's what is the exchange that's going to take place. Right. Yes. And then you also talked about the expectations, putting the cards on the table up front in the very beginning of the conversation. But this most recent thing that you just talked about, what is your value proposition? Because what are you bringing to the table, essentially? And making sure you're very clear with that. These are all valuable nuggets. If you see me turning my head, it's because I'm writing down notes, because I think this is a lot of value that you're bringing even to our podcast show, The Shift. So for those that's listening, I want you to do one thing. I want you to share this podcast for business owners that's growing, business owners that are expanding. He shared, again, your niche area is in the government space. And share, recap one more time what your services are.
Sure. So we have three main core services: financial services, HR consulting, and IT consulting as well. So we provide a number of services through those three swim lanes. We also do so by leveraging partners. So we have an AI data governance platform that we partnered with. We have a CMMC and cybersecurity platform that we also partner with. And just, so it's easy for everyone to understand when I say we partner with. So those partners, they are the software piece, right? So they're software companies, they're software as a service. They provide their expertise in their software, and our company provides the professional services related to that. So what does that mean? So let's just say you are a small company, or any size, frankly, company that needs to be CMMC certified, or needs to have a CMMC assessment to be able to do work with the Department of Defense. So the software company provides you the platform. We at PSJ come in and work with you in terms of how do you train internally? How those potential, standard operating procedure that you need to put in place to create a self-assessment, how do they spill over into your HIRS, learn management system? How can we help you dissipate this information so all of your employees understand how to handle, control, information, or so things of that nature. And sorry, I know I'm getting to the nitty gritty, but
No, this
I
is
wanted to,
yeah.
yeah, because otherwise, it seems like we just throw acronym out there, or we just, make reference. And so that's exactly what happens. And so this can be done on the cybersecurity side under our technology umbrella, is done from an AI perspective to financial services. That could be banking, that could be any sort of, financial services related company. And we also do it on HR side, on the workforce management, or through talent acquisition. So we have a variety of different ways to be able to advise on those things and those internal processes for government agencies as well as private companies.
So you do also work in the private sector?
Yes, we also do work in the private sector. It's sort of like our niche, right? So, but specifically when it comes to the CMMC certifications, that's typically it's small to mid-sized government contracting companies that they need to have that new requirement that was put in place from the government. And then we have some banking clients, for example, that use some of our advisory services to be able to, for example, collect data in regulated environments. So thinking from a bank, for example, environment, they offer different products to different population internally. And there are a number of regulatory compliance items that they have to obey, right? And so even internally, they cannot share certain data, or they cannot mix and match certain, information. And so what we do, we come in and we have a tool that can sit on top of their system, collect the amount of data that it's going to be useful for us to elaborate, and then produce the return, whether it's, data governance compliance, whether it's compliance level, predictability model, or any sort of analytics related to whatever their challenges are.
No, thank you for breaking down what your company offers in the marketplace. As we pivot to wind down the podcast, we still have a little bit more time. I want to start talking about legacy. So again, going back to when you started your entrepreneurship journey, 17, 18, fast forward to today, when you think about yourself as an entrepreneur, what type of legacy do you want to leave to your family, your community, and what you're doing with with your business partners?
Yeah, great question. I think from a, when you mention legacy, from a pure legacy perspective, what I would love to be able to leave, behind me is, number one, the ability to maintain an ethical, very reputable, and business, right, that does things right. So I think those are very important. And then, in addition to that, I will say maybe the ability, the interest, like I shared the story about my son. So if there's any inspiration that could come from there, from being an entrepreneur, from working hard, from, building something and do it, respectful of others, building a sense of community, being reputable, and doing the right thing, that's really what I would love to be able to be recognized, as a legacy. And then obviously, yes, if it's successful, right? If it grows to an amazing multiple or becomes a huge company, obviously unbelievable. But I think the foundation of that before revenues is being ethical, do the right thing, and have a good reputation around you.
No, that's powerful. I mean, that speaks to who you are. That speaks to your personal integrity. And obviously, the way you think is spilling over into how you're shaping your company, right? Which is also now spilling over into another generation, such as your son. One last question, and then I want you to share how people can reach out to you. So let's say there's a business owner that's listening or watching this episode. They might be in their very beginning phases. What words of wisdom? You've been sharing wisdom throughout the whole podcast, but any additional words of wisdom you can share to that person that's just getting started?
I'll say this again, go back to my foundation, right? So commit first and figure it out later.
Mhm.
You have to be able to commit. You're not going to have all the answer. Nobody does. Nobody has all the answer. There's so many things that you don't know that you have to figure it out on the fly that you might not even be able to figure it out. But if you commit first, that commitment, it's going to trigger something inside of you that will eventually be able to succeed through perseverance, right, and through hard work. But that commitment is the first thing, right? It's the motor of the engine. It's something that will kicks the kickstart everything, So you have to have the commitment first, in my opinion, and then everything else will fall. Don't think that you need to have everything mapped out in your head
Mhm.
at the beginning.
It's the commitment, because without the commitment, you'll start one day, something will happen, and you'll close up shop the next day. So it's the commitment. So how can one reach out to your company if what your services is in alignment with what they're looking for? What's the best way for them to reach out?
Sure, absolutely. I would love to connect. So you can reach out to me via LinkedIn. That's pretty easy. I know I have a little bit of a challenging name, but if you type my name on LinkedIn, usually it comes up. I have, I believe, over 15,000 connection or followers there. So usually it's pretty easy to find me there. If not, you can email me directly as well at Pasquale, which is PASQUALE at psjmanagementconsulting.com. And those are the easiest way to reach out, get in touch. Look forward to connecting with all of you.
Excellent.
Questions, business opportunities, and obviously, thank you so much to you, Catherine, and all your listeners. And I want to say, you're doing a great service here. And if I may, I just want to spend a couple quick words about your conference coming
Yeah,
up.
please.
I am completely bummed because I will be out of town, and I won't be able to attend. However, I recommend this to anyone, small, large companies, seasoned, newer entrepreneur. This is an amazing opportunity, not just to show up and listen to content, but you'll have an opportunity to digest and take away direct knowledge from folks that are real entrepreneur going through the same challenges that you are, and be able to apply that into your day-to-day routine, which I think is very powerful, important, and much more than your typical webinar or conference that you attend. So
Absolutely.
sorry I took some time, but
No, I appreciate that, and we're gonna stay connected, and as we continue to move throughout this year of 2026. Thank you for sharing those words, and for those of you that are just learning about Unlock 2026, you still have time to get registered. Registration ends on March the 18th. Go to our website, strategiccnetwork.com. Again, that's strategiccnetwork.com. Click on the Unlocked tab, and you'll see all the information and how you can get registered. Once again, I thank you for being with us on today. Thank you for not just for the interview, but you poured wisdom. That's what I feel. You poured out wisdom that we can actually take. Again, I was taking notes. So I can go into execution. And so for those of you that's listening, watching, I encourage you to pull out your notepad and pen, take notes, reach out to his company, and know that the best is yet to come. And I always end my podcast by saying, I'm going to see everybody at the top. Bye for now.
thank you.